Hey everybody, Dragon Movie Guy here. Welcome to another episode of Movie News You Can Use. This is the June 16th version of Movie News You Can Use, the episode of the Dragon Movie Guy podcast. I'm your host, Dragon Movie Guy. Thank you for joining us in the live stream or on replay. Please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel and let me know all of your questions about any of these news stories of the week in the comments section down below. Or if you are here live, let me know in the live stream, live chat section, because it's all about the interaction. It's all about the audience. It's all about the discussion. It's all about the give and take. And if it's just me talking to a camera, then what am I doing here? So, speaking of talking to the camera, joining me today is fellow YouTuber, film critic, the man with 1,300 subscribers. He has a rapidly growing channel. He has 2,400 views on his recent, I believe it's the Transformers review, which blows away every video on my channel out of the water. So, please, with that thought in mind, please welcome Bradley Carreiro to Dragon Movie Guy. Thank you for coming on. Tell me a little bit about your channel. What do you cover on Let's Be Real with Brad?
Having this time off, I'm going to primarily focus on doing more YouTube because now that I am then officially monetized for the past few months, I probably should put a little bit more effort and work into the technical aspects of the channel rather than just like the reviews. And
we got 5 stories for this, the movie news you can use for June 16th, 2023. Shall we jump in?
Let's go right ahead.
Sweet. Story number 1 for this week is Transformers Rise of the Beast. Transformers 7 had a $60 million opening. This is on par with many of the other Transformers movies. It had a $60 million domestic opening and a $110 million internationally, everywhere except the US and Canada. So that's roughly $170 million opening weekend. Did these numbers surprise you at all for Transformers Rise of the Beast, and have you seen it already?
Yes, so I've seen the movie. I was very high on the movie, but I might make a video talking about how I kind of just fanboyed the movie. It was probably one of the few times I've actually fanboyed on a movie and realized, yeah, maybe this movie really wasn't all that good. But if we're talking purely box office numbers, the numbers actually surprised me just a little bit because it was on the high end of the projections. But I also think that the international opening is actually really good considering that these Transformers movies do extremely well overseas. I think the $200 million budget might hurt this movie, but I think it can at least meet 500 to 600 million. It really just depends on all the competition that's coming out this week and what movies get a big release in China or in various countries. But Transformers has always been a staple internationally. I mean, if the Michael Bay movies can be those big box office successes, I can't see why this movie wouldn't. No matter how quality this movie is to anybody.
I surprisingly liked it, but that's only because the bar has been set so low for all of the recent Transformers movies, except for Bumblebee. I was pleasantly surprised by Bumblebee, had a great time watching it, and when they said they're going to do a Bumblebee sequel, I was like, yes! And then they said, yeah, Haley Steinfeld and John Cena not going to be in this film. So I was glad that Michael Bay has been driven from the series. I love Michael Bay early work, but the last 10 years or so, Michael Bay has been. I was pleasantly surprised the director was Stephen Caple Jr., who directed Creed 2, and he's a longtime TV director. Stephen Caple Jr. kind of stepping into the big blockbuster range of cinema directing. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by it, and the biggest thing though, I was so happy that the Transformers were actually transforming again. Like, you could actually see body parts moving and going around and like the whole sound effect thing, like the last couple of Michael Bay Transformers movies, they were morphing more than they were transforming. Like, it sort of looked like, you know, in Avengers Endgame, Tony's suit, like, stopped moving and it was just sort of morphing in one amorphous blob to another. That's what the Transformers were doing, and okay, fine, Iron Man, you can nanoparticles all you want. But Transformers, it's in the freaking name. They're Transformers. They're not Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They're Transformers. The whole point is that they're robots in disguise. Like, so yeah, the whole Beast Wars thing is a little bit after my time. I was a kid when the Generation 1, the original OG Transformers cartoons were on. I was like 8, 9, 10, 11 years old when the first 2 seasons of Transformers came out. So those were sort of my Transformers that I loved because they kind of looked at like the cars and trucks that were out at the time. Yeah, Beast Wars where they're transforming from a robot into a robot that looks like a gorilla, kinda, with robot hair. Yeah, that part kind of lost me. But yeah, I actually did kind of like this film. Now you said you kind of fanboyed out over Transformers: Rise of the Beast. What did you mean by that?
The bar being so low for those Michael Bay Transformers movies, I think anything that was unlike those movies, I was going to enjoy. And I also loved Bumblebee, and that was also a really big surprise. And I think that having this movie be primarily all about the Transformers and just being a very simple, standard story, I thought actually worked. But I think I fanboyed out on because I know a lot about the Transformers and like you that I enjoyed the original show and the Transformers the movie, also from the 80s, and just seeing cool things like that. And I mean, I still agree with a lot of positives I give it. I think it's more of a generic movie at its core, and I was given it. And this is the same thing I did with Godzilla versus Kong, where it's like, okay, if you nail the characters of Godzilla versus Kong and it's epic and cool, then I'm going to give it a really high rating, even though everything else really isn't all that good. So, uh, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat here. I want to make a video, but I don't know if I want to really humble myself that low and be like, hey guys, you know this video that did really well? Yeah, scratch all that. This movie ain't that all good. My review doesn't matter anymore.
You do have 2,400 views on that video, so that video is performing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Ramos, the leading actor from In the Heights, this is a really, really talented guy. I haven't seen a ton of his work other than In the Heights, but he did such a great job as the lead character in that musical. To see him playing the lead character in a Transformers movie, running from robots, when I know he's capable of singing and dancing, it kind of seems like a lot of underwhelm, but he was so good playing the big brother, playing the dutiful son to his mom, that he was able to bring like an emotional grounding to the Transformers movies that I think have largely been missing. Since then, there hasn't been a whole lot of human emotion at least on the personal level, on the ground level, and I thought Anthony Ramos did a great job bringing that to the role. Like, what did you think of him in that role?
I actually thought he was great. I think that he really committed himself to this role. And I was really excited to see him be cast in this movie because, like you said, In the Heights, Hamilton, he is extremely talented. But this movie does come off as a paycheck movie. It just does because you know what he's capable of. But when you see like how committed he is to his performance and how he interacts with these CGI robots and you feel like he's actually talking to them, it's really convincing. And I think he did a really good job and he has a lot of charisma and he just put a lot more effort into this movie rather than like Mark Wahlberg in those last 2 Transformers movies where he got paid like $50 million and he just didn't really care. I also really enjoyed the other lead of the film, Dominique Fishback. She was excellent in the movie as well. I really thought that her and Anthony Ramos' chemistry together was really good. I also really enjoyed what they had with their characters. Like they didn't try to force a typical love relationship that normally happens in these movies, and I thought her character was cool. What'd you think of her?
She is a really talented actress. I loved her in The Deuce. I didn't like her as much in this film, though. I thought it was a little bit forced. She's a very talented actress, but the thing I really did like, though, also, as you were saying, was the chemistry between the two of them. The fact that they didn't shoehorn a romance into a Transformers movie, which kind of seems like a requirement in some way, shape, or form. But, like, for example, the Mark Wahlberg Transformers movies, when they shoehorned a romance in, and they were literally having to describe Texas state law as to why it wasn't illegal, I was like, okay, can't we just make the character a few years older, or just skip the romance entirely? Like, if you're having to name state laws as to why it's not illegal, they're forcing something in a little bit there. They didn't end the fact that they weren't trying to force something like that in this film. If you remember Shang-Chi, that also was a film where they had a female lead in Aquafina, where they didn't go for the romance end. They were just friends the entire time. And that was actually kind of one of the things that they were pointing out was, they were pointing out, like, oh, are you together? Like, I don't know, we're friends. So I like that we're getting those types of relationships being experimented with a little bit in films of this size, because normally it's just, you're right, cookie cutter, same thing. And at least they cast two really talented actors as leads in this role, and it was fun too. That was the other thing. This is a fun film. It's a fun. I think that kind of got away from the franchise a little bit, like when they did the first Marky Mark one, where it was basically 9/11 but Chicago. Like I liked Transformers 3, but 4 was, and then when you have Anthony Hopkins in a movie and he's monologuing, and Anthony Hopkins doing a monologue can't save the film, that's when you know Transformers 5 is that bad. So the fact that we brought the fun back to Transformers, I love, and also I love Bumblebee the movie, but Bumblebee the character I think is really kind of played out. So the fact that Bumblebee gets killed off halfway through, in my seat, I was like, yes! Bumblebee is God! He looked like the Vision after the Vision was killed in Avengers Infinity War. I love the Vision, so I was like, we know it's coming, but yeah, like, and then, you know, he gets brought back to life. But hey, say I love you. Had my moment where Bumblebee was killed off, so, but yeah. I thought that was pretty brave though, when you take a sequel, it's a sequel to Bumblebee, and they kill off Bumblebee in the sequel. That's actually pretty brave, and the fact that, they gave the lead Transformers role to Mirage, with Pete Davidson doing the voice, is great. Did you like Pete Davidson in the role?
Yeah, I can't lie that I really like Pete Davidson. I think he's really funny and down to earth. So I felt like he was really perfect as this character. I didn't realize how funny he was going to be as this character, and it took me a little bit to know it was him because I had no idea who's in this movie besides the two leads and Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime. So it was really cool to see him just be himself, but also be the character. And I think Pete Davidson rides that fine line, and he was really good in this movie. And I gotta agree that Bumblebee being killed off right away was a massive shocker. Like everybody in my audience just lost their mind. Like I think people were crying in my auditorium. Like I feel bad. People love Bumblebee, so
Kind of felt like I was bathing in the tears of all the kids that were crying over the death of Bumblebee. It was like, yes! Bring on the tears! Bring on the tears! Are you not entertained? The other box office news from this weekend was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse took home $55 million. Very close second place. Very good hold for being in the second weekend. What did you think of, are you surprised that Spider-Man is performing so well in weekend number 2?
Uh, I am a little surprised, and the only reason why I'm saying that is because the competitive market in the box office right now is so hot. Like, if you look at all the box office numbers comparative to previous years, I mean, this is some of the best. I mean, this is better than pre-pandemic times, which is awesome for theater going. And I think seeing it do as well as it is a little shocking. And I think next week, or at least this weekend, it's going to do really well as too. But the grosses on like Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays are also really good. When normally those days you get a couple million here and there. If you're a bigger movie, you might get like 5 million. But each weekday gross is doing extremely well for this movie. And with school coming out in this week, next week, or whatever, like this movie is going to do red hot.
We're seeing word of mouth as to why Spider-Man is really kicking in and having such a really strong second weekend as well. June 16th, The Flash. It's been all over posters for the last 6 months, if not a year. The projection is $70 million for The Flash. Is that high? Is that low? Do you expect more? And also, we're getting $35 million projection for Disney Pixar's latest film coming out as well. What are your thoughts on box office projections for this weekend?
So if we're going to start with The Flash, I think The Flash is a pretty decent number. I think considering that it's coming out Father's Day weekend, you have Michael Keaton back, and you're going to have all the dads wanting to go see the new Flash movie with their kids because they're excited to see this movie. And I do feel that a lot of people do know. I mean, hopefully that this is going to reset the DC universe in some way. I mean, they've been really hyping this up. I also think having the Flash is one of the biggest superhero characters of all time. Like, I think everybody knows who the Flash is, and he's finally getting his own superhero film. I don't know how big this movie will be because we did see with Shazam Fury of the Gods where the box office of that movie just continued to stumble with the projections as the weekend went along. So we could see the same thing happen here. But when we do have the Father's Day weekend and Michael Keaton being marketed very heavily along with Supergirl and Michael Shannon as General Zod, I think this is a pretty decent number. I think a lot of people are excited for it, but I could see it dropping to 60 million. I don't know if it will actually go higher, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that the numbers on such a big weekend where school is finally out for pretty much everyone in the country, pandemic's largely over, everyone should be theoretically going back to theaters, and the projections for this weekend, the Flash has been getting so much publicity, and it is a good film. The review on your channel's already out. I've already seen this as well. I saw it at CinemaCon. I love this film, so I was a little bit shocked that it was only getting projections for $70 million, and that a Disney Pixar movie is only getting a $35 million projection for this weekend. So here we are, the biggest movie month of the year in June, and everyone's out of school, and everything should be back to normal, and we're not getting huge numbers, which shocks me a little bit.
I actually just put out my review because I had an early screening for it last night, and I thought the movie was good, but I do feel the marketing for this movie really hasn't been all that great considering that it is Disney, it's Pixar, and it's $200 million budget. So you would think like they're gonna market the hell out of this movie, and I really feel like they haven't. I also think that this movie is going to get hurt a little bit by its early embargo drop. The reviews have been okay. But I think when you have a movie like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and The Little Mermaid, who are just other movies that people are really excited to see, that I think younger audiences or just families are going to go to those movies instead. And I also think with Elemental having the Disney brand and with having Pixar movies be on Disney Plus for the past couple of years, I think people are just like, you know what, I'll just wait to go on Disney Plus. Like, there's no reason for me to actually go see it in the theater. And I completely get it because a lot of people have been doing that with a lot of Disney releases like Strange World that bombed last year or Lightyear that bombed as well. So I'm very curious of how Elemental will do in the course of the summer because I don't think it'll have a big opening, but it could have a little bit of a spark.
Lightyear being a bomb. Surprisingly, Pixar usually bats 1,000, so viewing habits may have changed, and especially when you're talking about buying 3, 4, or 5 movie tickets for an entire family to go see a movie, saying, let's wait a month and watch it on Disney Plus, which I'm sure most families probably have a subscription to. Wait a month for it to come on Disney Plus, because honestly, if going to the movie for 5 people costs you $100, what's waiting a month? This is related to the writer's strike. This is not exactly a writer's strike directly, though. This is SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, voted to go on strike last week if there's no deal in place by the end of June, by June 30th, which is affecting a lot of the July release movies for all the films coming out in July and August. If there is an actor's strike, that could mean that not only do we have this Tonight Show off the air right now, it's not just easy to send Harrison Ford onto the Tonight Show and say, hey, talk about Indiana Jones. if there's an actor strike, Barbie movie, Oppenheimer, even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which has 2 different mutants in the title, all these July movies could be affected. Are you worried about their ability to promote themselves, or do you think by now if it's a big July release, the crowd's kind of already made up their minds?
I would say I am a little bit concerned, just because people love seeing actors promote movies. Like we in the movie community, like love it, but at the same time, we're like, we're gonna see these movies anyways. It like doesn't really matter, you know. Like we know the deal. But to like general audience members, there is going to be something that is a little weird about it. But I do think that some of the movies that are coming out, I don't know if they'll be affected altogether because I have seen a lot of marketing for Oppenheimer, Barbie, and even the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 that's come out in July. Then you got, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, I think it's called, in August. So I think they will be okay, but I might have to agree with you when it comes to like September on. I think it's going to be in trouble if there really is a strike because a lot of those movies are not going to do as well, especially when people are going back to school and things kind of settle down. And usually September and October aren't the biggest movie money makers in the world. So uh, I'm very curious to see how this goes. Anything could really just change in a day. Like we could be talking about this, and the next day it all works together, you know?
For guys like you and me that love going to the movies, we're going to go regardless, but there is a certain out of sight, out of mind thing where if the Tonight Show is not on the air and people don't see Harrison Ford talking about Indiana Jones, maybe it's like the tree falling in the forest where does it actually happen if no one is seeing it or hearing it. I also think though that people are smart. I mean, I think we don't give the audience enough credit sometimes. Oppenheimer, Barbie, both these movies coming out late July, so it'll be interesting though to see whether it does affect box office projections and how many are actually coming in. The other thing that was sort of interesting, Blake Lively had a movie shut down by protesters. And it was with the writer's strike going on right now, they're trying to film a movie in New Jersey, and some of the movie crew members were willing to cross the picket line, some were not. And there is this article in Deadline a couple of days ago talking about how they literally got the casting crew into vans and were trying to drive to locations, and they were telling them they're going to shoot that day, and then they get there and they don't actually shoot that day. It's a whole thing. So our movie sets have been shutting down nationwide. Are you surprised that Blake Lively's movie got shut down, and are you surprised they didn't just try and pull the plug entirely earlier?
I'm actually sort of shocked by it because I also read that article too, and I thought it was just really strange. I think because I don't know how big this movie is supposed to be or anything like that, but I can't believe that they're still trying to work this thing out. Like, I don't know if it's really worth it. Like, maybe if it was like a big blockbuster movie, sure, why not? But I'm surprised they haven't pulled the plug on this, at least for the time being. I don't really think it's worth it. And also, it could end up not working in their favor if the movie's bad and they have to reshoot it anyways and it loses a ton of money because it's not going to be good.
I believe this was a relatively small budget film, so it's not like it's $100 million. Sad to see when you see that much money being spent and wasted. Strikes are never easy for anyone across. Disney announced a bunch of different release date changes. I want to focus on the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have Captain America Brave New World being moved from May 3rd, 2024 to July 24th, 2024. We have the Thunderbolts being moved from July 24th to December 20th of 2024. We have Blade getting pushed from September 6th, 2024 back to February 14th, 2025. We have Deadpool 3, which already got pushed back 3 months, now being pushed forward to May 3rd, 2024. Fantastic Four being pushed from Valentine's Day 2025 to May 2nd, 2025, and Avengers Kang Dynasty being pushed a full year, May 2, 2025 to May 1st, 2026, an entire calendar year. What are your thoughts on these release date changes, and are you excited for Deadpool moving up?
I'm really excited for Deadpool 3, as I would assume everybody is, with the return of Hugh Jackman. I do feel that the release date moving up is a very clear sign that the movie's almost finished, but also that Disney has a lot of faith in this movie, that they're willing to push it up. And it's a really good sign because I really enjoyed both the first two Deadpool movies, and I think this is going to be a pretty good movie, or at least I'm hoping it to be as a fanboy. But if we're talking about the other MCU release date changes, I almost feel that they were going to be inevitable just because with the writer strike going on and with them trying to figure out this formula and also announcing like 100 different movies and different various projects to all come out, like it's just not going to work, especially when everything is in within this timeline and everything's got to follow certain movies. Like, oh, we got to see this movie before you see this movie, and it jumps around. So I can understand why they do this, and also because let's say a movie does really well, and there's something that the director might have added and they changed, and then they got to go reshoot the other movie so they can follow along with that one. And it's cool. It's awesome. I'll never truly understand this process because I'm not in the industry, but I'm okay with it. I'd rather Marvel do this than to just put these movies out, make a ton of money, and just slowly lose their fan base. I don't want to see that happen. And I've seen some people already start to do that. The box office returns on some of them, like Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania wasn't the best, but then Guardians Galaxy Volume 3 was really good. So I guess it's really interesting to see what they do with it, especially with everything with Jonathan Majors that's come out. So that's I wonder what they're going to do about that.
Yeah, it's especially now too. We're getting some news reports of Tina Huerta, who was Namor in Black Panther Part 2. Apparently, he's had some allegations come up. It's still kind of early on, but with two huge stars that weren't big stars before Marvel, I think Kang is a little bit easier to handle because Kang can change his form anyway, and it's kind of already established that a little bit. But it would be weird 3-4 years from now if we look back at Ant-Man, Quantumania, and I guess the Cosby effect kind of comes in, and we start learning things that we really don't want to know. I hope there really wasn't something there. I look. We got to let the legal process kind of sort itself out. I think a little bit there too. What are your thoughts on Avatar getting pushed back? As far as 8 years from now, Avatar 5 got pushed back to 2031. Are you surprised? Are you worried? Are you? Do you even care at this point? I mean, what are your thoughts on the Avatar sequels also being pushed back?
As for the viewers, I have been a very big supporter of this Avatar franchise, and I was super excited that the second one came out and did so well as it did, and I thought it was a really good movie. I've always wanted these sequels to actually happen, and I think with the second one actually being made, I think it'll be possible, but it's not the best when you have to keep pushing these movies. But to be honest with you, if James Cameron wanted these movies pushed, then I'm okay with it because he has proven time and time again that he can do it and he's up to the task. But if this is more like Disney being involved with the moves, I'm not so sure with it. But to go to your point about going to 2031, that's kind of crazy to think about. I think I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this one of the first official 2030 movie that is like on the date so far? Like, that's crazy. Like, I would love to see this actually work out and to be good and to be this massive success. Like, I'm really rooting for James Cameron Avatar, but man, like, if you keep pushing it, you're like people are getting old.
If you do the thought experiment, like I'm not asking you to say the age, but have you thought about how old you will be in 2031? Eight
Uh,
years from now.
so I'll probably be like at least 30, 31 or 32. It's easy for me to figure it out because I was born in 99. So, I have a little bit easy math. It's either +1 or -1.
That's very true. Wrapping my head around that number of how old I'll be in 8 years is more depressing than it is anything else. Hopefully, I'll still have hair and it won't be all gray if it is there. So, the other thing I think to note here too is Disney has a pretty darn good track history with big budget movies, with Marvel especially. So the fact that they're not forcing the creators to adhere to an arbitrarily determined release date set way too soon for what it should be for producing a good movie, a la what happened with Warner Brothers and the DCEU. Well, we've got a release date, and it's 9 months from now. Disney's actually kind of going, yeah, we want to make a good movie, and we're not afraid of pushing the release date back from 2 years to 3 years. I actually kind of like that the corporate greed in this case, is not overwhelming to like, we need the release date, we need the release date. Are you agreeing with that sentiment a little bit? Like, do you actually like Disney going, you know what? We'll make a better movie and release it a year later.
Yeah, I have to completely agree with you, as I do feel that Disney must have known this when they bought out 20th Century Fox, because I know that was one of their big titles that they promoted all over Disney Plus when it came out, because that was around the same time that it was officially they officially bought Fox, and it was all over Avatar. And I think that they knew that these movies were going to make an insane amount of money, and I think that their marketing strategy for this past film was exceptionally strong by, releasing the first film back in theaters, which also made really good money. And now it's back at the number one spot all time. And I think that they should just focus on quality, like you said, because this is like their biggest franchise at this point, besides Star Wars, Marvel, and all of that. Like, I think that they're going to take this a little bit more seriously because this is James Cameron's movie altogether. And I'm totally okay with this, to be honest with you, because I I think that this is a good marketing strategy considering how expensive these movies are. And I think Disney knows that James Cameron is not going to go at the budget that they give him.
James Cameron having two of the three biggest box office movies of all time has earned the right to say, I need another year. The jokes about the CGI rendering time, sure, but when James Cameron says, I want to do these movies, I want to do it right, I did two of the three biggest movies of all time, give me some time. You need till 2031 to produce another Avatar movie? Okay. If it's going to get a couple $1 billion, why the heck not? It's Disney's money. We're all just living in Disney's toy box. Of the titles that we were talking about a little bit here with Fantastic Four, Captain America 4, which of these movies that's of the upcoming Disney slate of the Marvel Phase 5 slate are you most excited for?
I'm gonna have to go with Fantastic Four. I've always been a big Fantastic Four fan when I was younger. I even had like a birthday party. I like dressed up as the Thing for the Rise of the Silver Surfer. I thought that movie was like one of the greatest things ever, and I watch it now and I'm like, yo, what was I thinking at like 9, 8 years old? But yeah, I'm actually really excited for that one, just because I don't know who's being cast. Like, there are all these rumors and people speculating, and they even had John Krasinski, who was a very strong fan prediction, show up as a variant in the Multiverse of Madness Doctor Strange film. So I don't know what they're gonna do, and I'm really excited for it. Like, I'm excited for the other ones, but they just gotta do Fantastic Four right, because, like, look at the track record. Those movies are not good. I'm sorry to anyone who likes those.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of sort of like the first Fantastic Four movie. I wanted to like Fantastic Four 2 Silver Surfer, but I don't care about Silver Surfer all that much. And Fantastic. I mean, look, there's a mini industry, there's a cottage industry on YouTube just devoted to making fun of that movie, which is weird considering how many Oscar nominated or Oscar caliber actors are in Fantastic Four 2015. So the fact that we haven't gotten a classic film yet, a truly excellent film off of Marvel's first family, when these characters are very popular, I'm really nervous for this film. And yeah, I'm with you. I love John Krasinski. I love the idea of John Krasinski and Emily Blunt being Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Girl. I do wonder a little bit if they're a little bit past the prime age for the characters, because as the joke went in Deadpool 2, like, they have to be young enough to carry a franchise for 10 or 11 years, and 10 years from now, John Krasinski's going to be 50-ish. So, that's not old, but when you think about wanting to have actors be in an age range for the characters for a 10, 12-year period, it does seem like they'll probably go with the quote-unquote the young, sexy cast for Fantastic Four. So I'm a little worried with the casting, the fact that we haven't gotten the casting announcements yet, when it's 2 years away. But yeah, I'm in Marvel. I trust until I don't, and that has been tested recently. I mean, Phase 4 was not exactly Murderer's Row in terms of all-time classic Marvel movies. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, all these films are good, and the extra time they're buying will pay off. Pat Sajak, retiring after 41 years as Wheel of Fortune host. You said you were born in 99, so Pat Sajak's career on Wheel of Fortune is twice your lifetime at this point. Are you a fan of Wheel of Fortune and Pat Sajak, and are you sad to see him go?
I haven't really watched a lot of Wheel of Fortune. I think a lot of people my age kind of consider it as more of the old people show. No offense to anyone who enjoys it. It is a good game show. But I always liked him. I thought he was always just like really enjoyable to have on. I feel kind of indifferent towards it. I think if you are a big fan of it, I think you are going to feel kind of not great about it. I feel like, I mean, I don't really know too much about this, but was there like a farewell tour, or is this just kind of out of nowhere?
This is a announcement. He's going to be hosting for one more year. So it was sort of like James Corden leaving the Late Late Show. They gave an announcement and they said he's going to be leaving a year from now, so they can do the whole farewell tour. I do find it interesting, though, that Pat Sajak announced this announcement, and Vanna White did not make a similar announcement, because they've been prepping the audience for Pat Sajak's daughter. Like, Pat Sajak's daughter's been doing a bunch of stuff online and with the show, and so she shows up here and there. She's not a regular part of any kind of broadcast, but she does show up from here and there. She's very attractive, so she could be the new Vanna, but like anything else, if they can, they will go with fewer people. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had Pat Sajak's daughter take over as both letter churner, because they don't even churn letters anymore, and the host. I'm kind of surprised, though, that they make this announcement and it's not Pat and Vanna leaving together. Because the idea of 60-something-year-old Vanna White churning letters with a 35-year-old Ryan Seacrest wannabe hosting something about that, like the optics of it, kind of surprised me that Vanna White is not also making that announcement at the same time. I'm not a huge Wheel of Fortune watcher, but it is a big part of Americana, and it is a big part of history. Like with my life, I don't remember seeing Wheel of Fortune without Pat Sajak. I even remember in the 80s and 90s, they used to have a giant set that was kind of rotating, and it was like really kitschy kind of furniture they would have on this living room set. And they would have, when someone would win a round of Wheel of Fortune, they would have to spend the money on the furniture that was on display. So they, like, if someone won $785 in the first round, they would have this thing where they would have the studio camera kind of wandering around this set of really bad furniture that the sponsors clearly had paid to have on the set and bid on. And they would go, well, okay, I'll spend $300 on that couch and $150 on that end table. And Pat goes, okay, well, you have $23 left. We'll give you that in a gift certificate. And it was like the biggest waste of time. And, when you're a kid, you're like, okay, I don't care about an end table. Now, of course, I know, okay, well, it's product placement. But I think now it's so much better that they just go, oh, well, you won $500. That's $500. Go spend $500 on whatever you want to spend $500 on. That was the first question. Second question is, would you want to be host of Wheel of Fortune? It is America's game, after all.
If I was given the opportunity and they came up to me and they were like, Brad, you want to do this? Yeah, why not? Like, screw it. I mean, sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure there'll be a lot of hard work and a lot of extras and a lot of producers you got to talk to, but man, I mean, if you know somebody, we can make this happen.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, look, I'm not the hugest fan of the show, but if someone says to me, we really like that you have just under monetization number of subscribers, we want to hire you to host Wheel of Fortune. I'd be like, well, okay, sure, they're paying Pat Sajak millions of dollars and worldwide fame, but I have my channel. No, I pass on Wheel of Fortune. Of course, yeah. Who wouldn't want to be Wheel of Fortune's host and be in everyone's living room now and then and have one of the most creatively stifling but consistent jobs out there? What's the prize today? Yeah, there's 3 R's. I get it. It's not the most artistically satisfying job in the world, and there's 3 U's. Yay! But it is a job that would pay really well, and it's one of the most liked positions on television too. Like people that love Wheel of Fortune. There's a reason why they can get away with calling it America's Game and not have it be ironic. The fact that show has not really changed, other than the kitschy furniture fitting down. There's a reason why that show and that set hasn't really changed in 30 years. So the fact that it ain't broke, if someone said, hey, we want you to take over for Pat Sajak and we'll pay you, what, $2, $3, $5 million, whatever it is, okay. Of course.
Might as well, right?
Yeah, why the heck not? And then, yes, I would be the guy that had to replace Pat Sajak, but then forever on after that, I could be labeled, whenever I go on any show as a guest. And he was the man that replaced Pat Sajak. Please welcome Dragon Movie Guy. So it could be a sort of red badge of courage, if you will. Like for example, season 1 American Idol, Kelly Clarkson won. It's Randy and Simon and Paula. Few people remember that Ryan Seacrest had a co-host named Brian Dunkelman. And I have no idea what Brian Dunkelman is doing nowadays. And the fact that I can even say his full name and say his name is Brian Dunkelman is kind of funny. But whenever Brian Dunkelman walks in a room, he's like, I was one of the original hosts of American Idol. Brian Dunkelman. Mic drop. So, if I was the guy that replaced Pat Sajak, yeah, I would forever be the guy that replaced Pat Sajak, but why the heck not? I was the guy that replaced Pat Sajak. Damn it. I think that would be fun. Those are the five headlines from June 16th, 2023. For anyone that wants to leave a comment in the comments section after this live stream is done, please be sure to do so. What were your favorite headlines of the week, the month, the year? Who knows? It's all kind of a work in progress. Brad, what do you have coming up on your channel? Let's be Will, Brad.
I have the review of Elemental that I just released today. If you guys want to check it out, I'll be having a review of Extraction 2. And I will probably be having a DCU ranking movies, just because The Flash is coming out. And then for the next week, there'll be a lot of changes because I will be not at work, and I hope it's fun.
I'm looking forward to seeing it and seeing what you're coming up with just for new content. Because new content is always kind of fun. It's a giant experiment, just like this podcast and this movie news you can use show. It's something that I kind of thought about a couple months ago and thought, it'd be fun to at least try it and see if it gets any traction. So, Brad Carreiro, thank you for coming on. Let's Be Real with Brad is the channel. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time. See you, everybody.
See ya.